If you have any question, so this is now, I'm going to open the floor to for us to go into the Q&A. Um, by the way, I will also share the contact as well, um, for you to reach out. So do you have any question? Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Said. I really appreciate all your effort in making sure everyone in the group always have the latest information and what the legislation is about currently. My question is this, because almost all your webinar have been joining and listening. So mostly, I think I myself am independent. Okay, my wife is a student. She's done with her studies. We are on the postgrad already, and we have few months in our postgrad already. So it's really been kind of a challenge to get even interview. We are even lucky to get one for her recently. But my challenge is this: how can the dependents themselves be able, because it's really difficult, because dependent need to get 38,000 before they can be able to get sponsorship, why the students can easily get sponsorship with as much as 30,000.
Sorry, Yusuf, can you unmute yourself? Sorry, I think I accidentally mute here. Sorry about that.
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So my question is this: how best is it going to be easy for this dependent to be able to secure sponsorship in some cases whereby probably the dependent, due to experience and what have you, have more chances to actually get interview than the student, but the student also have the leverage of the 31,000, which is the new entrant for the student to be able to get secure sponsorship. So what is the best way for the dependent to actually work their way up and probably secure sponsorship? That's my question, because I think I've been listening to the webinar. Most of the time the students always have the best option, but in a difficult scenario where the person that is the student is not really getting the interview or getting the job, how best can the dependent come in and help? Thank you.
All right. Oh. Okay, well, I'm just going to give an honest answer, yeah, and I'll just tell you the truth. The truth is, um, the dependent will only be best positioned to secure the sponsorship if if that dependent is someone that has, the day they arrive in UK, that dependent has already immediately start working in the NHS. And that definitely, that dependence, we have to make the sacrifice of, and also the understanding that they'll probably not be at home with their wife, their partner, or wherever that person may be, knowing that you have to go out there and also the sponsorship from different hospitals to different hospitals, and you'll probably be sleeping in hostels or different places until you get yourself sponsored at the 38,700, unless you're very lucky, or you can be strategic actually to get yourself a job like a PA, and also a few other jobs that are on the shortage occupation list to get yourself sponsored. So if you look at PA role within NHS, I think it's on 4215 job code. That falls within the shortage occupation list. So that does not have any tie to salary expectation or requirement. That is something you need to find a way to position yourself well for if you have experience, particularly in that regard. But the honest truth is, if you're in this position, is always best advised. I know some of these decisions, particularly as a family, when you're coming to UK, you don't know which one amongst you is best positioned to go for it. I think this is where some of those discussion needs to take place. From the discussion in Nigeria, who's got the best chances in terms of our background experiences? Because it's a very difficult decision, and I'm very sorry, because how much of this can I say that will not sound like I'm not, because I'm not in the position, I'm struggling to understand what you're going through. But I do understand it, because if you think about it, one person has to be a student limited to 20 hours, somebody have to work full time. Rarely do you see anyone that have paid all their school fees. So when you get here, the person that is working full time needs to be supporting. So balancing it is very, very difficult. Which is why I will say to you that I'm not sure. You probably have my contact. If you're in the group, you probably have my contact. But if not, you can
Yes, I
reach
do.
out to me. you can reach out to me. We can sit down and look at this again and see how that discussion can be repositioned. But if I'm being honest, if sponsorship pursuit is a serious requirement, I really advise, from the days when the law has changed from 26,200 to 38,700 for sponsorship requirements. I do not remember having to commit and work with someone that is a dependent. Since that time, I've actually stopped it because I know it's probably almost unachievable, if I'm being sincere. All right. Did I answer your question, Yusuf?
Yes, you do. Thank you.
Uh, okay.
I'll kind of schedule a time so we can have a chat and
Okay.
catch this out. Thank you very much.
That's fine. Great. Um, do you have any question? Anybody with any question? Any question?
So, sorry, my question is almost like, does it mean like as it is now, it's much easier for a student to get more, offer with sponsorship within the NHS compared to independent?
A simple answer, yes.
Oh, okay.
Simple answer, yes. And that's because the requirements that it takes for a student to secure a sponsorship is not the same process for a dependent. If you're looking at it from a student point of view that has gotten a job in hospitals such as, so sorry, can you make sure you are on mute if you're not? Okay, so a student have an advantage of this. They can either get a job on shortage occupation list, or they can get a job on shortage occupation list, on job on the necessary pathway, which the 30,960, which a lot of jobs probably in London, or they can actually even start their career at a band 3 and therefore move on to band 5 and band 6 to secure sponsorship. Whereas you, as a dependent, whatever banding you start from, you're staring down at band 7 outside of London or band 6 in London. And I can tell you, those banding that I mentioned to you are highly competitive bands. Um, and people are not joking with those bands as well. And you will face intense competition. So you have to do more than the usual. So compared to a student, for instance, that is in a band 4 position in London, in Guys and St. Thomas's. Please, can you make sure you're on mute, please? Apologies for that. So if you compare to yourself that you are a student on a band 4 in London, right? You're a band 4 in London in Guys and St. Thomas's, and you realize that you're about 6 to 7 months coming close to the end of your visa, and you've been attending your band 5 for whatever reason you're still struggling to pass, you might as well just approach your manager and get sponsored on that band 4 on 30,960 pathway, because the three requirements you need to meet under 25, a graduate research program, or the 30,960. Once you satisfy one of those criteria as a student, you're probably best positioned to get sponsored.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Thank you.
No problem, Michael. Um, do you have any other questions? You can ask questions regarding any of the subjects that has been covered so far. You can also see my number there. That is also the number 07534832121, leading to the WhatsApp group that is in place. There's some requirements that you need to meet to join the group. But yeah, so if you have any, do you have any questions? That's the page of the website as well. That's the email address as well. Do you have any question? Do you guys have any questions? So Shay should be joining us soon as well.
Hi,
Hi,
Said.
Saeed. Oh,
Uh,
okay.
all right. From Lola Peters, please go ahead.
Okay. So thank you for everything so far, and it's been an impactful one. Um, my question is, if one is on a band three clinical role now, and then you're going on to say band five, six managerial, what are the prospects? I mean, what are the things to look into when you are arranging and making packaging your CV, and how do you optimize your skill sets? I mean, because you've got transferable skills from that clinical role to move, and some of us don't even have the transferable skills sets to package our CVs and applications well. What would be your advice for someone going from that field into a sponsorable, say, band five or six role that is non-clinical? So I think that's a very major one for me and for some people that are also listening.
Okay. One thing I would say is there's no job that you're doing, especially within NHS, that does not have any transferable skills in it. There is definitely no job that you're doing that will not have any transferable skills to write about that is applicable to the role. I'll give you an example. So let's look at one example I can give you now. Let's look at this in front of me. Just bear with me a second. So you're going into the role, you're currently working in a clinical capacity, and you're going into the role of, let's say, an administration manager, which is a band five. The only the only challenge I have now with what you're asking me is that you're probably currently sponsored on the health and care visa, and you want to move into the so-called skilled worker visa, which is quite the one you will get in a different one, then which is a different visa. That's also another thing in particular that you also need to consider. Therefore, there's numbers of issues here. You need to pass your interview first and foremost, but will a band five do that for you? Definitely not outside of London. It has to be a band five in London. um But how would you qualify for the sponsorship on a job whereby you're switching visa is a different questions, which I do probably know. I'm sure the trust will have to consult their legal firm to advise them, because every trust have a legal firm that handles their immigration question for them. So I think there are numbers of things in here. Definitely there are numbers of things you can write about your job, the roles you've played in clinical setting, the role collaboration with different specialist doctors, clinicians, all the things you do day to day, the way you've been able to play a key role in managing service effectively, the way you've also participated in developmental programs, all those things, how you've also supported colleagues in challenging circumstances, you've supported patients and their family and relatives. But the question that is probably hanging here is that what is next? You might pass the interview, but what next in terms of the visa pathway is the question around, yeah, that I'm probably not best positioned to answer. I think when you get to the trust, that is what they need to consider themselves. And I don't know if I've ever heard of a situation where someone has gone from a band three to a band seven or band eight before. So, which then leaves you with that option of having to secure the 38,700 for sponsorship. But I suppose you might be able to get sponsored, but definitely you will require a great deal of luck. Did I answer your question?
So, Said, what you're saying now is that if one is moving from a clinical role that's being sponsored under health and care visa to now going to a non-clinical, switching the visa is something that's very, very difficult for the trust or any trust. It doesn't have to be the same trust. Is it something that is technical or a bit?
I think
Uh,
again, that's what I'm saying, that that will need to be determined by the trust. I'm not sure how they will be able to switch you from that visa to a skilled worker visa, especially if the salary is in consideration. That's the question they need to answer. I don't know. I don't think I have an answer to something like that. You need to go and look at it carefully with the trust. If they're going to switch you to a new visa, which is the skilled worker visa, particularly, does the salary threshold have impact on their ability to do that?
Okay. Thank you for the answer.
No problem. Great. All right. Do you have any question? Does anyone have any question? Please feel free to ask your question now. I'm sure definitely some of you have my number. You can come inside the group and speak to me later. But do you have any question in case there's anyone, the answer I might give to your question might also help them. I will also release this video in the group as well, so you can watch it back if particularly some of you that have not been able to stay tuned throughout. Those are the details. But do you have any question? All right, that's fine. Okay. I think Shay is probably busy. Just so I can go through.
I've been here for a while. I side.
Shay. Apologies. Sorry. I did not. I didn't realize when you entered. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
fine. It's fine. I've been here for a while. Yes. I think I had the when before you started asking questions or before questions came in. I've
Okay.
been here.
Sorry. Apologies. I
Yeah.
didn't realize. Yeah.
No, it's all
Sorry.
right.
Yeah. So Shay is here. Thank you so much, Shay. So those of you, some of you probably know who Shay is already by now. But to some of you that don't know who Shay is, I've known her for a very long time now. Her story is unique in many ways because, and I'm sure she would tell you some of those experiences. And I think with some of the experiences I've had, this has shown me about, not relenting, about being resilient and being dedicated. As you can see in front of you, she started off as a band 5 on 20 hours, which is quite very unique in many ways. Um, Not really common practice within the NHS. But what was very quite um touching about these whole things was, amidst getting this job was when a lot of the legislations were changing. And you can see the struggle to try and get things up and running quickly, particularly with a lot of the rush around the legislation about the sponsorship in previous times. So but we are where we are today. She is here today. I'm sure she will speak to you about her experience. You can ask her question. She's, I've had opportunity beyond even knowing her on working with her to the point of securing job in NHS. Had opportunity to also work with her to help me coach people as part of their own journey as well into NHS. And like I've mentioned as well, she's probably going to be overseeing the interview management when everything is up and running within the company. That's discussion that is going on. So Shay, we speak with you. She'll probably be able to answer some of your questions if you have any. So Shay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Said.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm always happy to be here. Thanks, Said, for inviting me and for trusting me to, to always give my testimonial with regards to working with you. My name is Oluseyi Akinodenu. You can call me Shay. I met Said while I was in school in Shifidala University. I think I just had my baby because I was pregnant when I came in, and then obviously I just had my baby, and there was a lot of confusion around what to do. So I think a lot of my classmates then, were able to take part-time jobs. Most of it was care then, but because of my situation, I couldn't really do all that. So I think I was in a bit of panic mode, because I had not even built any form of experience, whatever sector it was. And then I think while I was working as a clearing operator, I met someone in the group already, and she told me about, the NHS group, getting into NHS. It was just a simple conversation, and I said I was interested in joining the group. And basically, I joined the first webinar that came up, and I took the opportunity when I know I didn't start in the webinar, but I know that usually Said gives the opportunity to do some form of, you know, like a mock interview. I don't know, Said, did you have that here? Yeah.
I,
Okay. Yeah.
I discussed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I was bold enough to volunteer to be the to be the person, going for the job. And we did, the normal mock session. He was asking me questions, and then I answered, and then he gave me a feedback, with regards to what I said and how I answered and how I could have done better. And all of this was obviously in a free webinar just like this. But that just sparks my attention to, okay, there's a possibility, and I can give this a shot. And just like I think Said keeps saying, everyone has transferable skills, no matter where you're coming from. You can always articulate it in your CV. You can always articulate it in your supporting statements to match the job role that you're going for. I have a clinical background, but I'm not even in clinical practice, and I was still able to, make something out of it. And then I went for different interviews. I went for the full package, by the way. Like I said, I was in a situation where I didn't think I wanted to, you know, miss out. Even when I reached out to say they had not changed the rules. I think it was the day of my first interview that in fact, I was on my way back when the rules changed. They had just called me and given me the offer. And, at the same time, the rules changed. There was a lot of it was a really tough time, but I'm just grateful for the guidance. I went for the full package. He helped me with, setting up my track, putting, my supporting statements, and then we did the prep. And Said will always say that's as far as he can go. Really, he can push you up to that level, but he's not going to do the interview for you. So it's all the work before then, and then we went to the interview. I got all my offers in terms of all the interviews I went for. The only things that were unique was I obviously was looking for sponsorship. So I needed to stick with the person that was, giving sponsorship despite all the rules. And I eventually stayed with my current trust because they were able to quickly, get me my sponsorship before the changes came into effect and all that. So, but what did I gain from, working with Said? That peace of mind, that push. I had times where I doubted, myself. Like I said, I had not worked for a while. I just had a baby. I was going into a completely different space from what I was doing, you know. And I just didn't know if I could. And then a number of the roles I was applying for, I didn't even think. I remember the first interview I went for, and the first one I got, because the job I'm currently doing is not the first, but the first interview. And then I asked Said again. I said, "Are you sure I can do this job? I'm seeing a lot of, you know, criteria. The criteria was, looking funny." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" And then he was able to tell me there's essential, there's desirable. A lot of what I was worried about was the desirable, right? So desirable is just an additional, but once you can match the essential skill set that is needed, jump in and go for the job. Those desirable skill sets, if you perform well, the manager, the team, the business unit can put you on, trainings that would, get you up to speed. I think it was a retail manager working with the restaurant and everything, and I think they were looking for food, health and safety, or is it food and safety certificate and all that. And I was like, I don't know anything about this. And I remember when I was coming, because I even went to meet the team, but the sponsorship didn't come as fast as the other one. It was all about, they were ready to put me on the training, on the certifications. So in summary, it's about showing up, giving it your best shots, making a really, really solid impression. Because once you make a solid impression in your interview, it's really difficult for them to forget you. It's really difficult for them to not offer you the job, except obviously maybe somebody just did just a little better. And sometimes I'm already in the system and I work with, the HR, because I'm under the people division. And what we do is there's actually the slot for the number two. So sometimes you give the number one the position, and maybe for some reason they even reject it, and you could be taken. But it's about not even putting yourself down before showing up. So it's about showing up, giving it your best shots. If you're going to be working with Said, which I would ultimately encourage you to do, just follow all his guidance, what he wants you to do. Make sure that you practice, listen to the videos, take that time. You can't put all the effort and then your money and then you're not doing, even your own part. So you need to do your own part. And it was such a lovely experience. And I think a plus for working with Said was he doesn't leave you after you get the job. He becomes basically like, a senior brother or, someone like a mentor, because he's in the system and he's already a senior. So he becomes like a mentor. So even when you get stuck and you have some things that you need to clarify, he was always open to, okay, this is what I'm facing. How do I handle it? Because we're all new to the system. We have just, moved into the country. We are not used to their ways of working, their culture. There's so many things you would learn. There's so many things you want to learn. All those little things made a huge difference. And he was open to answer questions and just guide me. And I would say now I completely understand the system. Even after I came in, I think with other people that have worked with him, everyone has had a huge testimony about what they have gained from, using his services, especially because he's got a wealth of knowledge and he understands the system. That's my story. With everything, I made it with my baby. I have two other kids. So I have 3 kids. I was also doing my dissertation at that moment. They gave me the job on 20 hours, which was very surprising. I remember Said being shocked when, I remember my manager and she says, "Oh, don't worry. I'm just going to put it in your contract." And, it was just really funny. And it was something that never happened. He was even shocked. So I started on 20 hours and I did my dissertation. I remember I went for my induction when I had one of my assignments to submit. I still had 1 or 2 assignments I had not submitted. So I didn't even sleep before my induction in the trust. But I just made sure that obviously it was something that was worth, every step of it for me. All that I went through, I think it was worth it at the end of the day. And then I submitted my dissertation and immediately I did I told my manager and then she spoke to the HR and then they were able to, change my contract. Excuse me, they changed my contract to full time. And it's been good all the way. So there's a lot of possibilities. Just open your mind to the opportunities. Things can be a bit different right now. You might have to start from say band 4. And if you are just, if you have just started your program, especially if you're doing your masters, it's better for you to start immediately and try to secure, that part-time role so that by the time you're done, you'll be able to go for like a higher band that would be able to offer sponsorship. So you might not start from, being sponsored immediately because of the increase in threshold, but you can start from say a band 4, even a band 5, and move to a band 6 that will easily get you sponsored. But the earlier you get into the system, the better. I think before I came, I heard, conversations about maybe a dependent joining, and it's the same thing. I would say if you get into the system early, by the time you actually need the sponsorship, you would have gathered some experience. Even if it's 6 months, it's enough to, for you to say that you want to shoot for the next level. With the lady that said being a healthcare, maybe in the clinical and wants to switch, I will still go back to the thing, make an impression, a really solid impression. And what would happen is your manager would tell HR that they want you, like they want you. That is, I've had people that have that testimony. They want you and they will do, they will try their best to make sure that they get you in. They have the legal team that can give them I remember then they had, with my new entrant and everything, they had a lawyer look at all what was possible, So it's about, you won't just go for the interview and, flop and then you say, oh, I didn't make it. But if you made a really good impression and you get to the stage where you now start talking about your visa requirements, that's where you can now say, okay, they will look at what the possibilities are. But don't relent and don't give the barest minimum, when you are going for these things, because once you make an impression, I know what the system is like. Your manager would speak for you, to any other person that needs to make a decision on your behalf, and you get in. So yeah, that's my whole story. I hope I've not been too boring, and I hope I've been able to encourage somebody to work with Said. Absolutely fantastic. I have my friends that I've introduced to him and they're all in positions that, are worth it, got their sponsorship and all that. So for me, he would always be my go-to person for anyone that wants to come into the NHS. So thank you so much, Said, for everything. I'm grateful and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shay. Thank you so much. I mean, to be honest with you, every time I invite you over to speak, some of the compliment I get from you sometimes. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for always
Yeah.
giving me the time as well. I really appreciate. And like I've mentioned to you, I'm sure at the beginning of the webinar, I did mention it. I've known Shay for a while now, and I'm very much grateful for the opportunity to even have her on board to help me coach people from interview point of view. Because sometimes now I feel not that I feel detached from the process, but I feel more of like in a position where she takes a more subtle approach. She's quite more, I'll probably say she's more gentler than I am. She's willing to tell you things in a way where I'll probably not do that. So being able to refer people to her now in terms of, doing the assessments, interview assessment with Sheyi is something that has made a major difference. And I think this is a culture that will be very much infused into the practice of the company when everything is fully launched, alongside some of the things I've mentioned about, being prepared for your interview before you're called. I mean, in the days of she'll probably tell you it was after she's been called that we started having prep. But now a lot of guys will tell you it's slightly different now. We will start your prep before you're being called. There will be mock interviews, things we can use to do those assessments, talk around your leadership qualities. And I'm sure even being able to hear from someone like she makes a difference from mine, because she can, because a lot of the things you can relate, and she can also share experiences with you, which a lot of those experiences, yes, I have them, but not first-hand experience. That I've witnessed them, but I do not have a first-hand experience of knowing what it feels like. And I think having someone like Shay that can walk you through that journey, in addition to some of the advice and guidance I'm also providing, is something that will serve a lot of guys well now. And I think, we are in for a very good future.
Yeah.
The time ahead is very tough, especially with some of the changes that will come in. But I'm sure, with whatever the difficulty may be, you guys will always prevail. And I'm sure, some of the beautiful things that has happened so far, it's guys I know that have gone on to secure roles in the NHS that probably thought it was unachievable. Some of the things we've done so far with a lot of international students is something that is worthy of being celebrated, particularly within the Nigerian community. We're probably one of the most intelligent community, one of the most brilliant and very, very successful community, but still underachieving. And I don't know why. If you look at the numbers of careers Nigerians are occupying, you think, why are we in this career? There are numbers of jobs Nigerians could be doing that will probably not cost them anything to attain. And this is what we're trying to do now. This is not about keeping information away from anyone. Make information easily accessible. Get rid of asymmetric information. Get you guys into the system. Make the most of it for yourself and occupy a position that is worthy of respect. And you can also look back and say you've invested in yourself and you've done the right thing. So Sheyi is here for the next few minutes. Do you have any one or two questions you would like to ask Sheyi or hear about from Shay? Does anyone have any question for Shay? Does anyone have any? Daniela.
Yes, I do have a question,
Yeah.
Said. Hi, Said. Thanks very much for coming and sharing your story with us. So my question is about the offers that you got. So like you said, you had multiple offers, and then you were sort of engaging the recruitment team to know which one would sponsor you as quickly as possible. If you can share just what that looks like, because I know that sometimes when you get an offer over the phone, you're expected to accept it at that point, and then you get the offer on track, and then there's an accept button. So did you just accept for all of them and then start emailing the HR or the hiring manager to ask about sponsorship? If you can just share what that looked like for you, that would be very helpful, please.
All right, Daniela. So I didn't get all of them at the same time, but they were all within the same period. So between November and January. The first offer I got, I accepted it. And yes, it was on track as an offer already. We had started the process for, they wanted to start the sponsorship process, but I remember them wanting me to bring my completion letter from school. And like I said, I was still writing my dissertation. So I was trying to figure out how to get a letter. I remember working with Said to see if I could submit early, if they would sit on, they usually sit on the results before, releasing it and all that. So I was in between. But obviously I had other options. So I went for my other interviews, despite the fact that I had an offer already. I went for my other interviews and then I got the other one. And I think the other one for them, they wanted me to start immediately. So when they gave me the offer on the phone, right, they told me that they wanted me to start immediately. And then I told them what it was, the challenge and the rest. And they said, oh, they needed someone immediately. So in that particular case, it was a mutual understanding that we couldn't go forward. The third one, I got the offer, and then we were talking about the hours. So they advertised the hours as about, I think it was just a little bit short of the threshold. And I know the manager talked about, talking to the HR. And then this fourth one gave me the offer, and theirs was more like wanting me to start immediately. It was just too juicy. Putting the contract saying, oh, don't worry, we'll start you on 20 hours, which is what, as a student, my visa allows. I made them to understand. So while I was still working with the first one, on track, there was an offer, right? And we had started, the conversation about trying to get a letter and all that. This other one gave me the job and I accepted their offer too, right? And they told me to start immediately on 20 hours. I could work from home for my 20 hours, right? So I started this. The other one, we didn't pick it. We had not agreed on a start date. So the way track is you can accept an offer, but without your start date, you've not started the job, right? So what happened is that with the one that I'm currently doing, what happened was immediately I got the offer. I got it in December. They told me I could start right away in January. I started 15th of January, if I recall. And they told me I could start on 20 hours. I could start from home. And then I started that one. So I got a start date for that one and it showed on track. I still had the offer for the other one, but without a start date. So I actually wanted the first one because in terms of maybe cost of living, I think Said would have talked about, the fact that you have to move here and there. I wanted that because that was in the north, right? So it would have been a bit cheaper, but it was still about my COS in the long run. So when they kept on saying, bring your completion, 4th of April was already, there. And these other ones, I just told them right away. And then, before I knew it, boom, my COS was ready. So I just reached out to the other guys to say that unfortunately. So what they did was they just withdrew there's a way they would withdraw the application. It's not the offer. They didn't. The word is not withdraw the offer. They closed the application. I can't even remember. I can't remember the right word, but it didn't look like the offer was withdrawn. There was another word they did for the application. So that was how it went. It was like they closed the application, and and then I continued on this. So yeah, you can have 3 offers. You can start. Your start date is actually the so when you've agreed on a start date with somebody, with one of them, that's when you are committed, or that's when you have signed a contract. That's when you are bound by the contract. So what would happen is if you have like multiple offers, for example, another one, and you started with one, what would happen is that you would need, if you prefer the second one that you want to start, you would now have to give obviously your notice period. But it's not a crime for you to have multiple offers, right? And I hope that answers your question. It's just not a crime. So you can hold on to the first, start it. The only thing is that once you start the first, if you have a second that you prefer, you would obviously have to give your notice period. Based on obviously the policy of the trust or where you are working. Some of them, while you're on probation, you might not have to give them, the standard notice period. For some of them, you have to give them the standard. So it all depends on what you've signed. But your start dates and getting, that unconditional, there are conditions. Obviously, you're now bound by a contract. So you have to follow the process, to be able to leave them to take the other one. But in my case, it was more like I didn't even have the start date with the first one in the first place. So yeah, manage the situation. I hope I answered you, Daniela. All right.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Shay. One more question so we can round up for 5 o'clock. One more question. Does anyone have any question for Shay? Uh, one more question so we can round up for 5 o'clock. All right. So, well, so I guess everyone is quite satisfied with the level of information they've gotten today. Then. So thank you so much, Shay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. So, what I would just say is, just to close off, that I hope again this session has really helped you. This is another session that is in celebration of the successful journey of the company so far till date, the impact we've been able to make. I can tell you just about today, there are numbers of people I've had opportunity to work with. I've gone on to take different roles. Some of them have gone on to take positions such as, I mean, Shayi mentioned to you in OD learning and development. People have gone on to become medical secretary. People have gone on to become MDT coordinator. People have gone on to become pathway coordinator. People have gone on to take on roles such as business supervisor. People have gone on to take on the roles of booking team lead. And all these, particularly, if you ask any one of them, particularly in relation to their background coming from Nigeria, these are roles they probably think is outside of their reach, taking into account their roles, their experience from Nigeria. But looking at where they are now, with the guidance, the support, and the mentorship that they've been given, they've seen what is realistic and what is achievable. And this is part of what these platform and this organization is about integrating international students into the National Health Service and making sure that you can reap the reward of your investment by securing yourself a reputable role within the NHS, which is one of the major public service in the UK. And I hope, with the information you've gathered today, this will probably spur you to pursue your career journey, start doing meaningful things, and start looking for a way to get yourself into meaningful position. And I wish you all the best in that endeavor. And I hope you have a very good bank holiday and enjoy this good weekend coming up. I hope now you're leaving here to utilize the bank holiday to begin your application. And if there's anything still cloudy to you that you need clarification, you have all the details and information. Reach out to me and I will have that discussion with you on the next step. So take care, everyone. Have a very good weekend and look after yourself. Bye.